Let's get started with our first big story. Kaio believes he has an advantage over Khamzat Chimaev. Kaio is currently scheduled to face Nassourdine Imavov at UFC Paris on September 6th, but he made it absolutely clear that if the UFC called him right now and offered him Khamzat instead, he would accept without a moment's hesitation. In a recent interview with MMA Junkie, Kaio went into detail about why he feels so confident in potentially matching up with one of the most dominant fighters in the sport. He explained that whenever Khamzat steps inside the octagon, he does exactly what everyone expects. He overwhelms his opponents with wrestling, jiu-jitsu, and relentless forward pressure. That's his signature. And yet, despite everyone knowing what's coming, fighters still haven't found a real answer for his style. Most teams, Kaio said, make a crucial mistake when preparing for someone like Khamzat. They assume the game plan is simple, just bring in a bunch of wrestlers, drill takedown defense, and try to stuff his shots. But Kaio insisted that is not how it works. He said preparing for Khamzat is far more complex than just stopping double legs. Kaio even used the example of UFC 319, where Khamzat dominated Dricus Du Plessis, but didn't secure a finish. He did what he always does, Kaio explained, but this time he didn't finish. When a grappler comes in, dominates, and doesn't finish, people call it boring, especially at the title level. Dricus was doing really well in the division. He was the reigning champion, and when you dominate without getting the finish, casual fans lose interest. They call it boring. But Kaio stressed that from his perspective, nothing about Khamzat has actually changed. He still views him as the same dangerous, phenomenal athlete. He acknowledged Khamzat's incredible strength, his top-tier wrestling, and his unique ability to keep opponents under pressure. Kaio even admitted that scrambling with Khamzat is nearly impossible. He's been scrambling since he was 9 years old, Kaio said. He's been doing it his whole life, so I don't think scrambling is the way to beat him. And here's where things get very interesting. Kaio revealed that he once spent an entire month inside Khamzat's training camp, back when Khamzat was at All Stars Gym. During that time, Kaio said he studied Khamzat's system, his movements, his setups, and his habits. Because of that experience, he feels he understands Khamzat better than anyone else in the division. In his mind, that gives him a real advantage. I know exactly what he's doing, Kaio said. I know his system, I know the steps he goes through, and I know how to deny those steps. I respect him a lot, he's like a brother to me, but at the end of the day, this is competition. If it's me and him, I'm going in there to win. He even went one step further. Kaio said that if the UFC were to call him right now and tell him, forget Imavov in Paris, we want you to fight Khamzat in Abu Dhabi this October, his answer would be an immediate yes. In fact, he argued that Imavov has already given the UFC plenty of problems by refusing to fight earlier during International Fight Week. So if the promotion wanted to move him out of the way and book Kaio directly against Khamzat instead, Kaio promised he would be more than ready to take that challenge. Before moving to the next news, we have one quick request for you. We're constantly working on improving our content to earn your love and support. That's why we'd truly appreciate it if you could take just a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Moving on to our next story, Daniel Cormier was genuinely surprised by Khamzat Chimaev's performance at UFC 319. Cormier, who has seen it all as both a fighter and a commentator, admitted that he did not expect Khamzat to dominate Dricus Du Plessis the way he did. Before the fight, one of the biggest talking points surrounding Chimaev was his supposed lack of cardio. Many critics and analysts believed that Khamzat's aggressive style would not hold up over 5 full championship rounds. The idea was that if Du Plessis could drag the fight into the later rounds, he would eventually expose Chimaev's gas tank. But according to Cormier, that entire narrative was completely destroyed on fight night. Cormier pointed out that Khamzat went out there and delivered a flawless performance. He controlled Du Plessis for 25 minutes straight and walked away with the championship in convincing fashion. The scorecards read 50-44 across the board, leaving no doubt about who the better man was inside the octagon that night. What stood out most to Cormier was not just the victory, but the way Khamzat was able to take Du Plessis down with such ease and then keep him pinned under relentless pressure. Now, to give credit where it's due, Cormier did acknowledge Dricus's toughness. He noted that Du Plessis never mentally checked out of the fight, even when he was clearly behind on the scorecards. Du Plessis continued to fight with the belief that he could still come back. That kind of mental resilience is rare, and Cormier respected him for it. But as the rounds went on, it became more and more obvious that belief alone wasn't going to be enough. Khamzat was simply too driven, too well prepared, and in absolutely incredible shape. Cormier explained that many casual fans underestimate what it takes to execute grappling-heavy game plans at this level. To the untrained eye, it may look like Khamzat was just riding out control positions, but in reality, every single grappling exchange takes a massive amount of energy, constantly pressuring, adjusting positions, and neutralizing an opponent's attempts to escape can drain a fighter's gas tank faster than almost anything else. For Khamzat to sustain that pace for the entire 25 minutes proved beyond a doubt that his conditioning is world-class. Cormier even went as far as to say that this performance should silence all the doubts about Khamzat's cardio. The idea that he could only fight in short explosive bursts, gone. The notion that he would fade in the later rounds, completely wrong. If there was ever a knock that Khamzat had no cardio, Cormier said that's been proven wrong. So in the eyes of Daniel Cormier, Khamzat not only became the new champion that night, but he also erased the biggest question mark of his career. He showed that he has the heart, the conditioning, and the relentless drive to dominate at the very highest level of the sport. Now let's shift gears to Tom Aspinall, who has come forward to defend Khamzat Chimaev's performance after some fans labeled it as boring. Tom spoke right after UFC 319 and made it clear that from his perspective, there was nothing boring about what Khamzat did inside the octagon. In fact, he described the fight as complete domination from start to finish. According to Tom, Khamzat didn't just win, he controlled every single aspect of that fight. In his exact words, he won every single round. It was a complete shutout. He went on to congratulate Khamzat on becoming the new middleweight champion, while also giving credit to Dricus Du Plessis for showing up, pushing through, and trying his best in the cage. Tom didn't take anything away from Dricus, but he made it clear that Khamzat's skill set was just on another level that night. At the same time, Tom admitted something that a lot of fans probably felt. He said he was expecting a little more excitement from the matchup. After all, whenever you have two fighters at the very top of the division, there's always this anticipation that it's going to be fireworks from the opening bell. But Tom made an interesting point. As someone who truly loves grappling, he explained that what we saw was not boring at all. It was pure control, power, and supremacy on display. He also addressed the big divide that often happens among fans. Tom mentioned that casual viewers sometimes watch a fight like this and think it's just two guys hugging or stalling against the cage. But in reality, what Khamzat was doing required insane strength, insane technique, and constant focus. He was dictating the pace, deciding exactly where the fight would go, and smothering any chance Dricus had of building momentum. That's not stalling, that's shutting down an opponent completely. Tom emphasized several times that this was total control. In his words, it was one-way traffic for the full 5 rounds. Dricus may have landed a few shots in the final minute, but Tom quickly dismissed the idea that it changed anything. Those strikes didn't have much behind them because Dricus was already drained from Khamzat's relentless pressure. He simply didn't have enough gas left in the tank to capitalize on those moments.
That's what Tom wanted people to understand. Yes, if you were hoping for a wild back-and-forth slugfest, you might have been disappointed. But if you truly appreciate the art of MMA, the chess match of grappling, positioning, and shutting down an elite opponent, then what Khamzat delivered was masterful. Tom finished by making one final point. He said fights like this separate the real students of the game from the casual observers. For him, it was a brilliant performance, and whether fans want to call it exciting or not, there was no denying the outcome. In the end, it was all Khamzat Chimaev, and it was complete domination from start to finish. Izzy admitted that the fight didn't play out the way he originally thought it would. He expected Khamzat to come out strong early, as he always does, but he believed that by the championship rounds, Dricus would be able to drag him into deep water and make him pay for the reckless pace. However, that didn't happen at all. Instead, Izzy said he was genuinely surprised to see Khamzat improve his cardio to such a level that he could push through 5 full rounds without ever truly slowing down. Adesanya explained it perfectly when he said, "That's a mess to deal with."
I thought Dricus might be able to stuff takedowns in round 4 because Khamzat would be tired, but instead, it was the other way around. Khamzat slowed down Dricus. He smothered him completely. For Izzy, that was impressive because he's been in the octagon with Dricus and knows firsthand how hard it is to deal with his pace, his size, and his relentless forward pressure. He pointed out that when he fought Dricus, the tide turned against him in the later rounds, exactly where Khamzat ended up taking over. Adesanya admitted that this made the victory even more meaningful because it showed growth in Khamzat's overall game. He noted that Khamzat didn't just come in with brute force, but with patience, a clear game plan, and the stamina to execute it for all 5 rounds. That's the kind of adjustment you want to see from a young champion, Izzy added. He didn't make the same mistakes. Instead of fading, he grew stronger as the fight went on. Izzy also gave Khamzat credit for flipping the script on Dricus. Normally, fighters expect Khamzat to burn himself out chasing takedowns, but this time it was Dricus who ended up exhausted, worn down, and unable to answer the pressure. Adesanya said that this shift in momentum proves Khamzat isn't just a dangerous fighter in the first 2 rounds, but someone who has developed the endurance and composure to be a nightmare across an entire fight. He wrapped up his thoughts by giving full respect, saying, "New middleweight champion, division's in good hands." For Adesanya, who has been the face of the middleweight division for years, this wasn't just a compliment, it was recognition that Khamzat has arrived as the real deal. Now we turn to Dricus Du Plessis' coach, Morny Visser, who had a lot to say about a potential rematch against Khamzat Chimaev. Visser made it absolutely clear from the start that they are not interested in jumping right back into the cage with Khamzat. The loss was still fresh, and he explained that instead of rushing into another war, the smarter move is to go back to the drawing board and address the very flaw that cost them the fight in the first place: wrestling defense. He explained it very directly, saying, "I won't just take a fight because it's available. I want to fix this problem. I don't want to prepare for someone else like Rainier de Ritter or any other opponent. When we fight Khamzat again, I want to destroy him." Those were strong words, but Visser also admitted that it's easier said than done. He pointed out that everybody on the outside thinks they know the formula for beating Khamzat: stop the takedowns, keep the fight standing, and punish him on the feet. But the reality, according to Visser, is much more complicated. Khamzat is not just a wrestler who shoots blindly, he mixes his striking and grappling in ways that make him unpredictable, and on top of that, he's constantly improving. He continued by saying, "If you're behind on Russian-style wrestling, you're in trouble. It's not just about sprawling, it's about the chain wrestling, the pressure, the constant pace. Khamzat has that ability to smother you and force you to make mistakes. If you're not prepared, you drown in it." Visser also made it clear that they don't want to waste energy on short-notice fights or unnecessary matchups that don't bring them closer to the ultimate goal. He said that Dricus has already proven himself as one of the toughest middleweights in the division, but when it comes to Khamzat, the gap is obvious, and closing it will take serious time and commitment. He emphasized that the plan is not to just hang around the division. Instead, the focus will be on sharpening every tool, especially the defensive wrestling, until Du Plessis can meet Khamzat again on equal footing and this time turn the tables. He summed it up by saying, "No rematch right now, but soon when we fix the gap, we'll be back, and when we come back, it won't just be to compete, it will be to dominate." That statement sent a message not only to Khamzat, but to the entire middleweight division. Dricus and his team are not going anywhere. They're regrouping, they're adjusting, and they're coming back with the mindset of erasing the loss in the most definitive way possible. Finally, let's close things out with Kamaru Usman's thoughts on the fight, because the former welterweight champion had a lot to say about how things played out inside the octagon. Usman made it very clear that in his opinion, Dricus Du Plessis and his team did not respect Khamzat Chimaev's skill set enough. Going into the fight, they carried themselves as if one area of expertise would not be enough to beat them. They believed they were too well-rounded, too durable, and too prepared to be dominated in a single discipline. But according to Usman, that was a critical mistake. He reminded everyone of something he has been preaching his entire career in mixed martial arts. Wrestling is the most important skill. It doesn't matter how good your striking is or how many tools you have in your arsenal. If you cannot stop a dominant wrestler from dictating where the fight takes place, you are going to have a long night. Wrestling, as Usman said, isn't just another weapon in the toolbox. It is the very foundation of MMA itself. And that's exactly what happened on fight night. Usman pointed out that Dricus and his corner underestimated just how dominant Khamzat could be if everything went his way. He said, "He crucified him in 3 out of the 5 rounds, and they had no answer. It looked like Dricus didn't even know how to get out of there." That type of control in Usman's eyes wasn't just physical dominance, it was also a mental shutdown. Once Dricus realized he couldn't stop the takedowns or escape the positions, it became survival mode. Interestingly, Usman also highlighted something that casual fans might not have noticed. Khamzat actually made a few mistakes in the fight that could have cost him. There were moments where he left openings that might have led to a finish even earlier, but instead of panicking or rushing, Khamzat showed maturity and patience. He chose to conserve his gas tank rather than trying to blow everything in one wild flurry. That decision showed growth in his fight IQ. Usman said it's easy for a fighter to get carried away when they're dominating, punching themselves out in search of a highlight finish, but Khamzat stayed composed, thinking about the long game. In Soman's mind, that balance of aggression and composure is what separates great fighters from good ones. It's not just about having the ability to dominate, it's about knowing when to push and when to pull back, when to chase the finish and when to secure the win. The bottom line for Usman was simple. Dricus and his team paid the price for underestimating wrestling. They didn't prepare for just how suffocating Khamzat could be once he established control, and by the time they realized it, it was far too late. So at the end of the day, whether fans label Khamzat as boring because of his grinding style or unstoppable because of the dominance he showed, the reality is the same. He is now the new middleweight champion of the world. And with contenders like Kaio calling him out, Israel Adesanya praising his improvements, Daniel Cormier acknowledging his cardio, Aspinall defending his style, Usman criticizing Dricus's preparation, and even Dricus's own coach promising revenge, one thing is absolutely certain: Khamzat has everyone talking. Love him or hate him, you simply cannot ignore him.